Welcome back to the Rob Skinner podcast. My goal is to inspire you to live a no regrets life, make this life count, and multiply disciples, leaders, and churches. Today, I'm reading day 2 of my new book, Before You Quit. And I wrote this to try to encourage people to hang on, to just keep going, to not give up their faith or walk away from the fellowship, which happens so often, regardless of which fellowship, which church, which denomination that you attend. It happens quietly and people don't even realize it's happening all the time. That's why there are so many Christians who are just sitting at home on Sunday. They're not in the fellowship. And somewhere along the line, Satan just pulled them away and got them disconnected. They still have faith, but they've lost their joy. They've lost their connection, and it's robbing them of their chance to continue to grow, and it could even jeopardize their faith in God. So join with me as I continue to read through. I'm reading Day 2, Quiet Disappointment with God. God, you owe me. After becoming a Christian, I started praying hard for my parents to become true Christians. My dad was a lapsed Catholic, and my mom started crying every time I mentioned Jesus, church, or anything related to God. I didn't know then the level of trauma she had undergone as a child in a Christian household. After repenting and getting baptized, I remember my first Christmas in my hometown. I took a long prayer walk through the hills of southern Oregon near Ashland, Oregon, and I prayed for God to build a fired-up church in my hometown that could reach my parents. I prayed for them to have open hearts to the gospel. I reached out to them with awkward words and attempts. My sister called me to say my dad had pancreatic cancer and didn't have much time to live. I flew home from Japan in 1997, where we were doing missionary work. I came in to see my dad on a gurney in the living room of the house that I grew up in. He was so thin and skeletal. I tried to talk to him about getting right with God. He seemed to be trying to gather his strength and started talking to me. My hope was that he would have a last-minute conversion, and that was my hope at the time. But then the morphine he was taking took him back to sleep. He slumped back into bed. He never woke from that coma and died a few days later. Pam, I, and our 3 kids returned to the States after 10 years overseas. We found a ministry job in Boise, Idaho. Then our church family was rocked by an organizational shakeup. I decided in that moment of confusion that it was my chance to reach my mom. She was living near my sister and brother near my hometown. And I resigned from my ministry position, packed up my family in 2 U-Hauls, and moved to Ashland, Oregon. I had no job and a few $1,000s to support my family of 5. I knew I'd live with regret if I didn't try to bring the gospel closer to my mom. I built a church in my living room. I started selling real estate, and it went well at first. Then the Great Recession hit in 2007, and sales dried up. I tried to sell houses during the week and sell Jesus on the weekends. I lost my retirement savings and my rental property, and I lost so many nights of sleep worrying how I was going to make it. But one thing kept me going. I wanted to see my mom become a Christian. She came to church. She loved spending time with our family. She was happy we were living closer to her. Only one small problem. She wasn't interested in God, church, or Christianity. On her deathbed, I begged her to become a Christian. I told her I was praying for her. She said, "Stop praying for me. Stop talking about that." She died a few weeks later. At that point, a hole just opened up in my soul. My hope, my faith, it collapsed. I thought somehow there was going to be a thief on the cross moment with my mom. I felt like God owed it to me. He owed me for the sacrifice I'd made, moving my family, giving up my paid ministry vocation, starting a new one at 38, cashing out my retirement to keep us afloat, losing our brand new car, losing our property, all the tears, all the prayers, all the hopes dashed. People just couldn't get it. They would say, "Oh, well, you tried. She wasn't open." Those words really didn't help. I realized too late that I should have read Matthew 13:57 one more time before I chose to move there and start that church. But Jesus said to them, "A prophet is not without honor except in his own town and in his own home." I'm still working through this loss, but one thing I gradually realized is that God doesn't owe me anything. Subtly, I felt like God would reward me for the sacrifice I'd made to him over time. I wanted more than the chance to offer my mom the gospel. I wanted God to make sure she responded the way I wanted her to. When that didn't happen, I was mad at God. I felt betrayed. I gradually realized that God was never and never will be under obligation to me. I still went to church and I still did my religious duties, but the air had been let out of my balloon. I was empty, hollow, and struggling to trust again. I was the clay pot shaking his fist in the air at God, as described by Paul. But who are you, a human being, to talk back to God? Shall what is formed say to the one who formed it, "Why'd you make me like this?" Romans chapter 9, verse 20 through 21. Does not the potter have the right to make out of the same lump of clay some pottery for special purposes and some for common use? You might be facing disappointment in God, making sense of unanswered prayers, wondering when your hope will stop being delayed, trying to love God when you're hurt by his silence. I'm with you and want to encourage you to keep going in the midst of that disappointment. Thanks for joining me. This is chapter 2 of Before You Quit, my new book, Hope for the Christian Who Feels Done. I hope it encourages you today. And my hope is that word will spread and that this can go out to people who are just on the edge, who are thinking about leaving, who are just dealing with disappointment and how it's affecting their relationship with God, because I've definitely gone through my share of struggles over the years. So if you know someone who could use some encouragement, please, just copy and paste this episode, send it over to them, text them, say, hey, you should pay attention to this episode, or just get the book. If it's on Amazon, it's easy to find, because my goal is to inspire you to live a no regrets life, make this life count, and multiply disciples, leaders, and churches. Have a great day and make this life count.